Okay, so I know about yourself. Tell me about yourself as if I didn't, or no, just, I don't know, say something about our relationship. Why do I know you?
Why do you know me? Well, I had a measly little podcast long ago. I probably over 10 years ago, I started that podcast, I would guess. It was called The Ceiling Fan, and it's a weird thing because in college I studied broadcast production. I'm gonna go way back. I was born in a small town, and no, I'll go back to college and say I studied broadcast production, and I ended up landing an intern at Focus on the Family and the makers of Adventures in Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Chris, and and while there, I always enjoyed the radio drama Adventures in Odyssey, and while there, I became friends with several people who worked for Odyssey, which was neat because I'm like running into Nathan Hubler and Marshall Younger and people who I heard Chris mention at the end of episodes, and um and so I kind of became familiar though with like the Adventures in Odyssey online like fans, fan club, the community, some might say, um and heard a few podcasts that were being done in that kind of world, which is now is pretty normal. Like every 20
Yeah.
something year old white guy has a podcast.
Only white guys, though.
And so any fan club or whatever has a million podcasts. Survivor, I'm sure, has like 400 podcasts dedicated to the show.
Is that still a
Or
show?
I don't know,
I don't know.
but I bet it still has podcasts dedicated to it. Or The Bachelor, stuff like that. So this was that, but like pretty early on, because I feel like Adventures in Odyssey, because it was a radio drama, had kind of this propensity towards, its fans being interested in podcasting, or at least I did because
Yeah.
I
Well,
liked
I mean,
Adventures in
the
Odyssey.
premise of Odyssey was the whole audio
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
Like it was
And
it was
so
already kind of weird that you liked Odyssey because like, well, what, you like a thing that you listen to? Nobody listens to
it's
stuff.
weird. People don't use their ears anymore. Yeah. And so this, at the time, I was probably more embarrassed to talk about having a podcast back then, because I'd have to explain what a podcast was. And so I had a podcast that was kind of a fan podcast, but it was so niche because it was like a parody of fan podcasts of Adventures in Odyssey, and it kind of turned into a bit of a radio drama in and of itself, but like a parody of radio drama. And
It's
you
so niche, but so
you had heard it.
that was why it was so cool.
Yeah,
Because
it
if you knew
really
about
was.
it, it was.
Were you were like 16 or something?
I don't even know if I was that old when I
Yeah.
first reached out to you.
So you reached out and
I told you,
would
Kevin,
you,
I like your show, but I don't like your very inappropriate music video with swearing in it.
oh, that is what you said. Oh man, yeah, because I had I had done, when you're young and you don't know what you're gonna do with your life, you just kind of make stuff and throw it out there. And I'd done a few parody songs, and one of them was this song "Sexy Chick." I had done a parody of called "Gotta Piss," I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it was up there on the
And
internet,
honestly,
and
looking back, I think that was one of your best songs.
it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
The
I
production
don't think
value was pretty high too.
it's probably not on the internet. I mean, I'm sure it's
No.
out there somewhere.
See,
but,
this is what one of the reasons I look back and I feel like I knew we were going to be friends. I knew it was a real friendship because you sacrificed that video, which had like 30,000 views or something on it, to get me to come and be part of your podcast, or at least to like, maybe it was because I was like Christian guilting you into it or something. I don't know. But I always looked at it and I was like, wow, even though this is obviously not a big deal, Kevin did this because he wanted to be friends.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's probably to a degree true, because you wouldn't have been the first person to have a problem with something I'd said on the internet. The infamous me saying the word prick on The Ceiling Fan.
Oh, yeah. Did you go back and edit that episode out?
I did edit that. Yeah. Because I didn't, I was so homeschooled, I didn't know what it meant. I just had heard it in movies, and I was like, I thought it was just, like jerk or whatever.
Well, I mean, what's
So
jerk mean?
it actually comes from, if you'd like to know, it comes from the soda parlor workers were called soda jerks because they had to
Oh,
jerk
okay. All right.
the
So
thing back. So it actually isn't a bad thing as you would assume today. It feels like a bad word.
I feel like
But
it's
so if
worse
you're like,
now.
oh, you're some jerk, it just means you're some minimum wage soda parlor worker, which brings us back to Adventures in Odyssey.
There you go. Good segue.
And so you came along, and there's a few people who had kind of reached out because it's just a just a fun little podcast, and we all worked really hard to make like this thing that was for like, I don't know, like 300 people listen to that show.
Yeah.
It wasn't huge, but I feel like there was a dedicated fan base, and it was a lot of fun, and we honed our skills. I was listening to, because we did this like kind of
the parody album
story arc.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We did a story arc where we went on this band tour. Like the main character, Ethan Daniels, went on a band tour, and we did songs. And so you basically put together a whole album for this podcast.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I was listening back, and I remember kind of we were learning together how digital music making works.
It's like I think literally the reason I was fooling around with random stuff on DAWs before that, but I don't know if it would have become a job for me, a career, unless you had pushed me to make that album with you.
Yeah.
Like,
did I push you too hard, you think?
You're like Elon Musk's dad to me.
We
just
need this.
You abused me into it, and now I'm so successful.
And look at you now. Yeah, it was fun. But I do look back at that, and I'm like, man, I probably did. Like, I mean, it's not like any of you guys were getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
But
no,
I wasn't either.
I look at that situation with nothing but fond memories, man.
Okay,
good. I really like I said, like I love doing what I do now, and I don't think I would be doing it if it wasn't for you.
Good. Finally, good. At least I influenced somebody in a positive way. I mean, it's so funny because now I have so that's how we know each other. Now I have a YouTube channel where I make fun of Christians, which is always what I always did, but I just broadened my audience to just Christian movies in general, and not just some crazy niche thing.
Not just making fun of Christians who like Adventures in Odyssey and who are homeschooled enough to need to find an internet community to.
I'm still making fun of a niche group of people who the only people who know about that media are the people who like the group. So I'm still shooting myself in the foot very on a regular basis. And then on top of that, I have a tendency to, like politically be very different from people who want to watch videos that are making fun of Christians.
Right.
Because I tend
usually
to be
it's
very,
people
like,
who are like
middle of the road.
Bitter.
So like a lot of like atheists and stuff will watch my videos and like, oh, I like it. And then I'll say something about how the government shouldn't exist. And then they're like, I hate you now. And, so I just am constantly destroying my fan base. It's great. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I honestly, it's like it lets me know that you're not falling prey to the temptation to sell out.
Oh, I would. If I knew how, I would do it in a heartbeat. I want to sell out, but I just don't know how. There's too many bad Christian movies out there. I mean, I review non-Christian movies from time to time. I want to review the Snyder Cut because I tend to like.
Yeah, what's that about?
I've reviewed several, but like I can't do a full review of that 4-hour-long movie.
Yeah,
it's too long.
It's going to be 4. Okay, so that's the difference, is that it's just a longer version of the movie that was already boring.
No, I mean it's very different. It's like 60% new, or like they got rid of a lot of Snyder's vision for the final version. So, I mean, it's worth watching if you like DC stuff and you enjoy
I haven't even gone back and watched the Batman movies yet. That's how out of sync I am with DC. I need to give them an honest watch.
I think that it's probably one of Snyder's better movies, but it's long and it feels like there's a lot in it that they would have cut out for theaters had it been released, just regularly. It wouldn't have been 4 hours long, and you can kind of feel that it shouldn't be this long.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's better than I think the original cut that came out, especially in terms of like they kind of digitally relit for the original cut, the Joss Whedon cut, and it looks really bad. Like it looks very cartoony. And in this, it looks the way it was shot. Like it was clearly shot to look the way that it's kind of colored in this. So that's my review. So now I don't have to make
we finished the review. There you go.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask. I feel like I already know the answer, but like, you've been doing the movie critic thing for a while and making fun of movies, but that hasn't taken away your ability to like appreciate a good movie. Because I feel like sometimes if you get in that headspace of just tearing things apart all the time, it starts to like you stop being able to suspend your disbelief.
Suspend disbelief. Yeah. Well, I think for me, I always was that way. A lot of the projects that I've worked on that I've done on my own, because, I work on, like you said, maybe you didn't say after we start, maybe you said earlier before we started recording, but I do work for other people oftentimes, so like, that's why I don't sell out, is because to me, all of the projects that I do on my own, whether I make money doing them or not, that's my outlet. Like that's where I get to like be who I am. And so a lot of the projects I've done are just things I was already doing. Whether it's I did the Inner Tube for like 5 years. That was a podcast where I talked about content creation. Well, that's just something I love to talk about. And so it's kind of like, well, let's record what we're doing and that'll make it better. Then we can actually like make content for people. And I think the movie reviews are very much that. I've always felt that
I remember like this wasn't near your wedding. It was I think it was just you happened to be passing through North Carolina where I was at the time, and so I just hung out at your house for a few days, and I saw the inner workings, or like I saw the childhood of Kevin, and like, oh, Mystery Science Theater. This has always been a part of the way your mind works and the way.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about Say Goodnight, Kevin, is I did the first episode of my movie reviews with the mentality of I've always wanted to make a Mystery Science Theater episode, and this could be terrible or it could be fun, but let's just see what happens. And so there is always an element of like just quips and jokes within my reviews, but then there's also kind of I've always felt that like any movie you can learn something from, even if it's how not to make a movie. And I feel like that's kind of I've carried that over into my reviews where I'll watch a movie and I think as an editor, I get this kind of bird's eye view of things where I can see the story and I can break down, well, here's where it kind of fell apart. And Christian movies have just been kind of the realm where I've gotten more kind of, maybe I've tapped into a niche that, where I am a Christian who is reviewing Christian movies. That's unique because most Christians reviewing Christian movies are like reviewing it based on family friendliness. They're like, well, there are 25 F words in this movie, and I don't care about that. Like that doesn't concern me in the least. I know a young Garrett Vandenberg would be concerned about that sort of thing. But
by the way, this is not a Christian podcast.
Oh, good. So, it's just Christians in a podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
to me, reviewing movies, it's just fun to be able to kind of watch a movie and then here's my takeaway from this. I always have an opinion, but it's nice to turn on the camera and then like share that opinion. And so that's what I do now.
I was listening to your conversation you had with Phil Vischer earlier today. And
Oh yeah.
that was awesome that you got that opportunity in the first place. But
Yeah. Well, it's the behind. Here's the behind the scenes. A really great guy. Can't remember his name. But he's like a promoter guy. I should look him up. But I'll look him up while I talk. I won't be able to do this.
okay. So we find the guy or not.
I met this guy. Since I work kind of in media, I did some work for a website called christiancinema.com and did some hosting stuff to where they would always if you're a Christian outlet or whatever, you get invites to these premieres. And typically, or if you're a pastor, you get invites to movie premieres all the time, to Christian movie premieres. And so the Christian Cinema, I became friends with the guy who started it. I'm going way back here for you. I became friends with the guy who started it because he liked my reviews. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to make videos with us?" And I was like, "Sure, that sounds like fun." He's like, "Well, we get these invites to these Christian movies all the time, and we have nobody to send. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to." So I ended up for a while there. I was going to a lot of Christian movie premieres and just doing red carpet
great time.
interviews and stuff. It was fun.
I
wouldn't.
I was thinking
wouldn't make.
You had to go and sit there and watch all the movies. But if you just get to meet people, that's fun.
Well, and I did, but I don't hate watching these movies. Like I said, there's something to learn. Some of them are insanely boring. And the ones I hate the most are the ones that are boring and the same. And it's just oh, this is tiring and I'm tired. The best ones are the ones that are so bad they're
exactly,
good.
Yeah.
Or they're surprisingly good. I'm like, wow, this is what everybody should be doing. This is what I've been saying since this whole thing got started. So anyway, Phil Vischer. Yeah. So I met this guy, all of that to say, I met this guy, who I was inclined just now, my pause, to look him up again. I remembered part of his name. Matthew Baracki is his name. All right. Shout out to Matthew. Shout out to old Matty boy, best buddy Matt. He is a promoter type guy, and he has connected me with a lot of people who are making content. And so here's what I'm getting at. With Phil Vischer, I have never met the guy. I've seen the guy. I've been in the same room as him before, but I didn't meet him. He doesn't know who I am. So that's the hardest interview with my Say Goodnight Kevin podcast, is when you're connected with someone
and
they're like, okay, you'll be calling this person at 5:43. You will answer the phone. You're given a list of instructions and stuff. So if you compare that interview with, say, my interview with Alex Kendrick, which was actually a completely organic,
met the guy
friendship that grew. Basically, Alex is like, ask me whatever you want. I'm an open book. And I'm like, let's go. And that was super fun and really cool. I think if I knew Phil Vischer, he would be that way. But obviously I didn't. So it was
if you want to talk to Phil Vischer now,
and this lady answered the phone and she's like, okay, you are on with Phil in 4, 3, 2, go. and I remember they had, they sent an email and they were like, how long will it be? And I was like an hour. And they're like, he can do 30 minutes. It was negotiating the time. And so in that interview, there is you can hear me saying all right, well, I wrap it up probably quicker than I would have liked, and probably the audience would have liked. But he was really nice, and it was cool I feel like I was able to, and you could tell me because you just heard it. I was able to kind of set him up with understanding where I was coming from, to where he was able to kind of share.
I was surprised, I guess, to hear. I guess not that surprised. I've been listening to his podcast a little bit too, which is quite interesting to hear his kind of perspective on things and where he's gone. But hearing that VeggieTales was so inspired by Ren and Stimpy, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
But it just made me think about, okay, he was pointing to a problem that I think still kind of exists in the church to some extent. It depends. I mean, you look at, we've got two different extreme versions of the church at this point, but there was a problem of churches not being able to not take themselves seriously. Too many nuts there, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. It was a quadruple negative.
But like, because, okay, and this is something I've noticed. I was reading a book with some of my friends lately.
Oh, reading.
And well, it seemed to kind of hit the same concept. It's like, you're not really willing to take somebody seriously who's not willing to not take themselves seriously. There's my quintuple negative.
Wow, that was great. That was like, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But like, more in my
I don't
world.
know half as many of you, twice as well as I would like
in the comedy
to.
world.
But okay, I'll tell you the book I was reading too, which is it's a classic. It's called Don Quixote. It's about not about a donkey.
Don Quixote.
But
that's not the name of the book, but that's okay.
I think that the problem that author was trying to like address at his time was just like, at that point everybody was kind of over religion. Or at least it was on its way out. People were kind of becoming disenchanted with the Dark Ages. We were getting to realism and realizing like, okay, we can get a lot further with science than we can with this silly religious stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it was sort of the same problem.
Kind of a reactionary
yeah.
perspective.
Well,
yeah.
and so, but Cervantes, who's writing this, at least the way I'm reading this book anyways, I'm seeing it as like, okay, he sort of redeems that idealist hero type. So Don Quixote is this guy who, in a world full of people who are basically naturalist, realists, kind of post-religious people, he's, taking up arms and being a knight errant and like playing his part in the cosmic story of Christendom. And because the whole thing is like a comedy, making fun, like constantly he's just running around making mistakes and being an idiot, because he's like, he has such a high perspective on how everything is supposed to be. He ends up making all these mistakes, but then
he's such an idealist.
Yeah, he's such an idealist that he, yeah. And then in that, the story is about him just kind of being almost a klutz of and just like making all these, reading too much meaning into everything. But then in the end, it sort of redeems the character, and it's like you're willing to take that story seriously, or you're willing to take the redemption seriously, because he doesn't present the hero character as if he's flawless, or he doesn't. So it's like, I don't know. I was seeing kind of a parallel there between what Phil was doing and what this old 17th century author was doing, and it's like, I feel like that's sort of the critique that you can give a lot of Christian movies and Christian content in general. Is just, you're so taking your message so seriously. That people aren't willing to take you seriously.
Yeah. No, I mean, just as somebody who's spent so much time watching Christian movies, that's probably the key issue with these movies, is just the everybody's got to stick up their butt. Nobody's willing to have any levity in these ultra serious situations. I mean, it's one thing that I appreciate actually about the most recent Kendrick Brothers movie, whatever it's called. What's it called?
I don't know.
Overcomer. Yeah.
Okay.
And stupid. Every scene essentially ends with some kind of joke. Like, not that was a stupid scene kind of joke, like a scary movie sort of type scene, but a bit of like realism, levity within the situation that I actually appreciate. And I think some of the stuff is in the movie. Like, I did a whole review of the movie, and I think some of it's just so unbelievable, and there's not a lot of like strong character development that was needed in order to kind of offset that. But I genuinely think that it is the humor, not in making fun of the situation, but in sharing what's real. People like me who, when you hear of somebody passing, you have to kind of have somebody you can joke with and laugh with about the memories of the person. That's something that's necessary, that I think is, it's kind of shallow in Christian movies, where it's like, well, we better not do that because people will misunderstand. Where any drama, any good drama that you remember has humor in it. And
Mm.
but it's not humor like Will Ferrell type humor where it's just loud. It's like humor to where it's kind of reminiscent, and it's like laughing at life, and it's um you know that can add so much strength to a serious situation, and like you said, kind of give give people a reason to care, give
Yeah.
people a reason to take you
I think
seriously
that's
because they
probably the
realize you
reason.
have a handle on my emotions.
I feel like that's probably the reason that Rick and Morty works as a show too,
Mm.
because it's obviously marketed to sort of the modern nihilist type who's just
Yeah.
who's and even like it consistently pokes fun at religion, pokes fun at
Mhm.
meaning in general. But then when it sneaks in and has Rick crying and contemplating life, or like Morty trying to figure out the reason for existence, you're willing to take those moments a little bit more seriously. Whenever something, I guess, really, whenever a character has a change of heart, whenever something kind of, I guess, romantic, not in the
Mm.
lovey-dovey way, but romantic in the
Yeah.
sense of like values happens, you're willing to take it seriously because you're primed to kind of, I don't know, you already you
care.
feel grounded, yeah.
Or to not, yeah, because you're like, "Well, this show is constantly telling me not to care, and now it's saying,
Yeah, why
but
does
maybe
that
care
work?
about this? You're
Yeah,
still
okay.
gonna care about." Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm into it.
You're finally, you're looking for something to care about. I know you don't get the sense that they're trying to like hit you over the head with a message because they're not taking themselves too seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Where Christian movies, I think, have kind of a hurdle more than any other genre to a degree to jump over, which is you have a history of being super preachy, and that's fine. But lots of movies are preachy. But can you do this? The reason I'm talking about Christian movies is because I talk about it all the time. But like, because you brought up the Phil Vischer interview,
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, is this what
it
you
was
want?
interesting to talk to him and actually get some realism out of him, about that. Like, so how come VeggieTales works? VeggieTales is very funny, and it's interesting, and can kind of not, Simpsons have made fun of VeggieTales a million times, and yet there is no tweet from Phil Vischer every time Simpsons makes fun of VeggieTales, like, "Oh, well, actually, you shouldn't make fun of it because this is the Lord's work," or whatever. Like, that type of attitude is what I think makes it so that it's like, okay, yeah, Simpsons makes the joke, that's funny. They kind of have a could have a similar, audience, honestly.
And okay, I wanted to go somewhere else for a second, but I'm just thinking about this. Like, you notice the modern sort of activist idealist type suffers from the same problem of not being
Sure.
willing to be made fun of, and that I think if you want to be an activist for something's important to you, you could probably get people to take you more seriously if you didn't take yourself quite so seriously.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah,
You
I
said
mean, I think even SNL has tried to kind of do that, as annoying as SNL can be and as not funny as they can be. Like, they had their, like, woke jeans, sketch, and the I know that the argument, 'cause I reviewed Unplanned, and that's an abortion movie, and I got a lot of pushback, like, "How dare you even make any jokes ever?" And I think the same thing happens in the modern kind of, like you said, activist realm where you have, like, "Well, people are dying, and so how dare you make a joke," or
right.
whatever. Well, these are the types of things that the average person needs some padding.
And
They
the thing
can't
is,
have
if the
hit over the
conversation
head
is
like
if
that.
the conversation is so heavy that as soon as you say something, if you don't say it perfectly right, and if it's not like 100% seriously, 100% in line with the values or whatever, if you're going to get crucified for it,
Mhm.
you're not willing to even engage with the topic and think about it honestly and ask the real questions that you have. Like, I feel like it's, again, there's a barrier to entry about talking about anything that serious people want to talk about, because
Yeah.
regular people, when they want to talk about it, have questions, and they're
Right. And sometimes exploring and figuring out what you really believe takes humor and comedy.
Right.
And if you tell people, no, you can't make a joke and you can't explore what you believe about this, you need to just take it for what it is and what I'm telling you. And if you don't, then you're a bigot or you're racist or you're anti-religion or whatever, like, or you're going to hell. All of those things make people uninterested, or at least it makes me. I can't speak for everybody else, but I can speak for
It
me.
makes it be uncomfortable.
Right. And so that may be, you got to believe that people can grow, and you got to believe that people can. Sure, you may believe that there's only one way to live life, and to believe. A lot of people feel that way, that they believe that their way is the only way. But you have to admit, even if you think that way, which I don't, but like I
You
think
think
there's
you're
lots of
wrong
ways
about
to live life.
everything.
I'm not. I think I'm pretty much wrong about most things. And but that being said, people need people need even if they're going to come to the conclusion you've come to, they're not going to come to it in the same. They're not going to take the same path to come to that conclusion. Whether you're a Christian who's like, the Jesus is the only way. There's many paths to get to Jesus in that regard, and there's many paths to God. Maybe there's many gods. Who knows?
There's many paths, anyways.
Yeah, and then in the same regard, like, there may be people who are kind of ignorant and they grew up believing one way, and it's going to take time.
Yeah.
And
you
that
got
type
to
of
make them
patience.
feel. If somebody feels comfortable to be wrong, that's the ideal place. You don't want to reward people for being wrong or something. I don't know. If you want to make people feel comfortable being wrong, so that way they're willing to learn with you.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Well, let's go try to find something we disagree on, so we can get deeper, get more interesting. Well, I was going to ask you. This is not going to be that much of a disagreement, but I just wanted to know what do you like? You're 4 years into doing the or is it more years? You're pretty
Probably more.
Many years deep into doing Christian reviews and stuff like this. Do you feel like you're doing what you want to do when you grow up?
Why would you even ask that? No, I cry every night. I don't know. I mean, you know what? I'm getting a little bit of a echo in my ear. So in that regard, I'm not doing what I want to do.
Let me see if I can fix that. Sorry.
Okay. This will be great for the podcast. I hope you leave all of this in. I should do my stand-up routine. So what's the deal? I'm just drinking the whiskey you gave me for my wedding.
You actually?
No, I drank that a long time ago. I'd never had whiskey before, but now I'm an alcoholic. Thanks, Garrett. It wasn't you. It was COVID. The lockdowns made me an alcoholic. Good. What was the question? Where are we?
I said, what are you doing? What you want to do? Have you figured out like where you're headed? I don't know. I have this kind of sometimes anxiety doing anything that's artistic and making that a source of income, because I never know how long something I'm doing is going to last, for one thing.
Yeah.
But then it's like, I don't know. And then you can get locked into a particular project. And what if you want to do something different?
Sure. It's like dating. It really is like, I mean, once you're married, then it's all fixed. But then with careers, it's like, well, I'm not ready. Like, this was always a stepping stone, whatever I'm doing, you know? Yeah, no, I mean, I love doing my YouTube channel. I wish with all my heart that it was much bigger. It's always been that way, where I've always consistently grown with my YouTube channel or with my work or whatever. It's always like grown, but it's never, I'm like, man, if I was here 5 years earlier,
right,
I would have been great. Like if I was just unmarried, living in an apartment, a studio apartment, making what I'm making now off of my YouTube channel, then that would be great. But I can't live off of my YouTube channel now with a mortgage and a wife and 4 pets, you know? And maybe I'm just always getting ahead of myself. But, you know, maybe you just spend what you make. I've been super blessed, and that's the funny thing, like, I don't know if that holds me back. If I'm like, well, I'm lucky to be where I'm at, you know, I've always been able to have that perspective. I've never been like an overnight sensation where I have this huge like burst of subscribers or something. It's always been a slow growth.
Yeah. Well,
And
and to some extent, I think that's kind of healthy, because when you get whenever you get an explosion of like a rocket boost in your status, then suddenly it's like it's a lot more. It's actually like a different way of life than you previously were
yeah.
at. And,
Well, I just watched a video from that guy, 10-second songs. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but
maybe
he got famous doing like, it wasn't 10 seconds, but I think he said in the video that he started off, the reason his channel's named that, like everybody who got one of those has to explain why their channel's named whatever it's named. They're like, I'm sorry I named it this. I never should have done it. I should have changed it years ago, but I was scared. But like he did like all these different styles. So he did like a Linkin Park song in 40 different styles. And he just did a video where he's like, hey, so I keep doing these kinds of videos and I kind of don't like doing it. And I've been doing it for like 5 years. And so it's interesting to watch somebody who's kind of at that stage where overnight he was like, yeah, my first collaboration was with Linkin Park because it blew up, like, and it was on the news and it was on the Ellen show and all this stuff. Like overnight he had this, and then he had to watch his channel kind of dwindle and settle into a fan base.
right.
And just that need for a dopamine hit of like, okay,
You have to watch things go down for a while before you get to start going up again.
Yeah. And I've been really, I mean, obviously, I was super blessed to make friends with the guys over at Blimey Cow, another channel that has to explain their name all the time. And, but like that they shouted me out and promoted me, and that I got to do the inner tube with Josh, where then I kind of was able to maintain that fan base and stuff. And so I don't think I would have even kept making my videos if it wasn't for
Right.
them and the encouragement and the promotion and the fans that came over from that. And the coolest thing was when I started getting like comments that were clearly not like the Blimey Cow regulars. You know, I was picking up my own
Right.
people and my own fans and stuff like that. And, you know, I've picked up people from Cinema Snob and all.
So this is the thing that frustrates me about making content right now, is that it seems like that is one of the only ways to get people who otherwise like would be interested in what you're doing,
like collaboration.
Yeah, the attention real estate market is so cluttered. It's
super saturated.
There's so many people making content, and it's like, so why even do it? Like, there's but
well, I mean, definitely my God's Not Dead review is what has, I think the majority of my subscribers came from that.
Yeah.
And so like the boost from that was bigger than like any of those collaborations that I did.
Did that make you start chasing virality though? Like trying to do the next video that was going to have one of those big?
No, actually it was kind of a relief, because I'm like, well, there's always Christian movies coming out. So it gave me something that I could ride the coattails of.
Yeah.
That wasn't a collaboration, that I could just, all right, people are now sending me content to do. I don't have enough time. I don't have to think of video ideas. I just have to watch the movie and give my opinion, and that's all I need to do. There are a few videos that I've watched where like I can tell that I was looking for a problem with the movie. Like there's a McGee and Me, not my first McGee and Me review, but there's the other one where I'm like, man, I am saying, I watched it just because I was looking for a clip, and I was like, man, I'm saying so much that I don't need to say in this. So I've unintentionally honed a skill, which is kind of reviewing movies and stuff. But the cool thing is, because it's never been my primary source of income, I've never felt the pressure
Right.
To like, well, I gotta keep doing this. I
Yeah.
keep doing it because I'm like, well, this is fun, and I actually like. Sometimes I'll try to shift into, like I said, I've done DC movies and stuff, which I enjoy, and
Yeah.
that's what's weird is I have an opinion about these movies,
Yeah.
but sometimes I'll get comments like "Stay in your lane," and I'm like, well, dude, it's
I
my
hate
channel.
that comment.
Yeah, leave me alone. Uh, I don't like that I'm at the subscriber count that I'm at. I'd love it to be bigger, but then if I look and say, well, but you used to have like 300 people listening to your podcast. You're lucky, Kevin. You're freaking lucky. And stop feeling bad for yourself.
You have some freedom to do what you want to do, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think, yes, there is a level of like chasing virality but to me, as somebody like for you, I can see that would be difficult because you're like, man, I'm super talented, but yet I need to do these like mainstream things to get noticed. Where me, I'm not super talented, so I'm like, well, I can pretend, I can do this mainstream thing, and that's all I've got.
I don't know. The imposter syndrome really sets in when you like sometimes you feel like you have something to offer the world, and then sometimes you like make the thing you feel like is the best thing you've ever made, and nobody cares.
Yeah. I think there is a level when it comes to artists like of strategy that you just have to, but that's not like, that's just honing another skill. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I really want to do the thing that I want to do. And here's something fun and creative that I can do with those things, those talents that I have, like doing a parody song or doing a cover song or that sort of thing.
Sure. I guess you can kind of find those middle grounds. I hate that there's such a market for parody songs and for cover songs, and people have just kind of cashed it on like, okay, well, if I want to be a musician and I want people to pay attention to what I'm doing, I have to just do covers. It's like,
yeah, because there's bands like Capital Lights or something that were an actual band, and then they got virality doing cover songs, and they're like, well, this is what we do now, and now they shoot like whole full-fledged music videos doing covers of all these popular songs.
And it's the problem. Okay, so
it's disgusting.
Well, it's obviously very palatable. Like suddenly you can actually be making a lot of money. Like the problem with, and the reason you see so many people selling out, I feel like, is just because and I mean, there's so many movies that cover
there's
this
money
plot
in
point.
Selling out, it turns out.
Yeah, but the payoff for doing it is so much. And the punishment for not is also so much. It's like if you want to be an artist, if you want to do anything artistic, and I think the internet has sort of made this worse because now there's access to whatever. Like if you're limited to like a city or a village or your tribe. Let's go back to the good old days of when we were tribes.
Just one fire. Everybody's limited to one campfire.
Exactly. See, if I was living in the day where the entire market was just my local, my local campfire peeps.
Your mom.
My mom. See, if all I had to impress was my mom in order to be successful, I would feel so much better about my
Why can't we go back to that?
But no, I mean,
with
the internet, that was like,
nanny state.
If you can make a song that everybody wants to buy, then it's not like everybody can buy it. And then,
yeah, I would agree, but yet we live in a time when niche markets can flourish. Like you can actually tap into some stupid niche market like Adventures in Odyssey fan podcast and actually do okay. Like of course I can say like, oh, I'm reviewing Christian movies and like, yeah, I'm not making a living. Yeah, but I'm trying to live a lifestyle of a married man with 4 animals, with 2 dogs and 2 cats and a wife even. I forgot about that. No, but like
she eats a little bit too, needs some space to live.
Yeah, she needs food too, it turns out. They don't tell you about that in college.
In Bible college, anyways.
In Bible college. Yeah, but like, I agree that it's like, man, I can't, but I feel like there was this hump, speaking of marriage, of like, Yeah, you could go viral with a video of your chipmunk looking at the camera. Great. But now people have realized, like, because there's demand, they've offered supply. And for the consumer, it's gotten better. Like, there's better things to watch. There's better viral videos than the crap that was coming out when YouTube first started.
Right.
Like the cat videos. That's the joke, and it remains today. But in
There's
reality,
way better cat videos now.
yeah, there's some good. That's what I was gonna say. There's some great cat videos. Like, I'll even click on them, and I'm like, I'll spend an hour, and I'm like, this.
I honestly
so
do feel
funny.
that way. Like
The way
I will.
set up this saran wrap for these cats to try to get. This is hilarious. I love it. You're right. Like, there's super highly produced cinematic cat videos out there, and that's the beauty of it. No, you can't just take your phone and film your cat and expect it to go viral. You actually have to up yours. But,
No, but
that's
okay,
better for the consumer.
there's
But
this
it is
mysterious algorithm, magical thing you need to pray to that maybe you're like, because like, no, okay, so knowing that there seems to be a market for the whatever most niche thing there is. But
Yeah.
there's this weird invisible wall where all of them are hiding behind, and
like
how
a
do you
cat
reach
in
them?
front of saran wrap.
There's this saran wrap wall, and I can't get.
Honestly though, I don't feel that, because I've always committed myself to not caring about the algorithm. And I landed in a spot where the algorithm cared about long form content, where most of your audience was watching till the end and then watching other videos of yours, that would reward you. And I didn't know that was going to happen. And I landed on that where, like you said, or like I said, one of us said that my channel has grown slowly. A lot of the people who watch my videos watch till the end. So the percentage of people who are watching my videos are watching from the beginning to the end, or at least halfway through the videos. And I didn't do that to chase the algorithm. I did that because I just make the videos that I want to make.
Right, and it just happened
And
to
so
work out.
it happened to work out with some of my reviews. And but also, like, I know the aspects of my channel that I'm not doing that I should be doing that probably would make my channel work. One of them is probably getting away from the niche of Christian movies. One of them is being more consistent, but it's hard for me because I have this desire to make my videos. I spend too much time on them, and I really want to make them good. I don't want to just crap them out. But I make the videos that I make, and I have to kind of decide with myself, am I happy if I just crap them out? Or do I want to just, if I'm going to make this video, am I going to make it good?
You have
And
to, like Disney told me, you have to be true to yourself.
yeah, you have to follow your heart and true to yourself, and be all you can be. But like, I can look at that and say, okay, I'm probably reviewing, I don't know, some random a youth group, the movie or whatever, isn't going to get me a lot of views. I probably would get more views if I hurried up and got my Snyder Cut review out. But I don't, because I don't feel like it. And so I can kind of look at my channel and know, what is it that I should be doing? And can I put up with the stress? Like when I did my Wonder Woman review, for example, I wanted to make the review. I watched the movie and was disappointed. And I'm like, I really would like to review this. But every time I'd log into YouTube, I'd see everybody else, like Red Letter Media and Mr. Sunday Movies and Jeremy Johns and like all these other YouTubers who review, like all the big fish in this pond, getting their videos out. And I'm like, my video is not going to go viral because I didn't get it out fast enough. And people are going to say, I already saw Christian or Cinema Snob or whoever. Like, I already saw Nostalgia Critic say this stuff, and so that's like that's kind of the artist dilemma, I would say, where you're like, sure, I could
The
probably
presumption in
sell
there, though,
out.
it seems to be like what you're saying is that you're saying the same stuff. You're not saying the exact same stuff because there's two elements in that equation. There's the movie and there's Kevin.
Yes.
And
there's the
you have to have
obvious
that
stuff.
faith that you got something special.
Yeah, no, I mean, you just got to get over that you don't have something special. Because there's only so much you can say that's wrong with the Wonder Woman movie. And some of it's super obvious. And if I don't point it out, if I don't say, hey, this is set in the 80s, but it doesn't utilize the 80s one bit. Like, I have to say that because it's obvious. And if I don't say it, people are going to say, I watched Red Letter Media and they said this and you didn't say that. But then if I do say it, they're like, I watched Red Letter Media
and they already said that.
And it's like, you can't win. And part of that is not looking at your audience as some conglomerate of like one unified voice. Like one person's going to say one thing, another person's going to say another thing. And you can't let like opinions get to you, especially when you have a channel that's like literally you just giving your opinion.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of like making music and stuff, you do what you do. I think there should be like 30% chasing the algorithm, looking at what other people are doing. If you get a little traction, sticking to that. I think that's something that the thing that I think is maybe a fault of mine, but also is a benefit, is I have a tendency to stick to something for a very long time. And so like the Ceiling Fan, the podcast that I mentioned for Adventures in Odyssey, I kept doing it for like 5 years. And it wasn't until I started doing YouTube videos where, I was able to do it on my own. I didn't feel like I was pressuring you and Lauren and all these other people to like, when's your lines coming in, you jerk? I hate you as a friend. Those sorts of things. I kept doing the Ceiling Fan longer than maybe I realized I had the stamina to do. And I was putting all this work. And I remember feeling like, man, if only this team that's making this could work towards something else that was more like viralable.
Yeah.
I was like, man, there's so much talent within the Ceiling Fan with Lauren and all his voices and all his drawings and you and your music talent and your humor and Mark and his ability to do Phil voices. and Mark's very talented music wise. And if I'm missing anybody, Chris Green was involved later on. And all these talented guys working towards something that I felt was like my vision that wasn't very broad.
Yeah.
I was like, man,
and it was a weird situation too for me. I remember several times having sort of awkward moments where I was like identifying with the show as it like, oh, this is something that I'm making. I guess I'm not really making it. This is Kevin's show. Is this my show? Is this Kevin? Is this our show? Is this Kevin's show?
It was our show. We were all, but there's an aspect of like currently I'll sometimes hire video editors and stuff. Right. And I try to shout them out or like, I pay them obviously now because I have money coming in. But like, it's still their editing and in part of the training for that. Like I make training videos for my editors because they have to learn to edit like me. And right. Sometimes there's wiggle room there because it's like, okay, they're bringing something new to the table. But also, can they wiggle? That's the important thing, is the wiggling.
Okay, this over here, if you open that door, that's the wiggle room.
Wiggle a little bit. There, go to the wiggle room. Get your wiggles out. So yeah, making content's weird. I think as somebody who I have a tendency to work for other people, so my videos. So your question was, am I where I want to be?
Yeah,
in life.
At some point, that was the question. Yeah,
and here's the true answer. I'm further than I ever expected to be, but I'm nowhere near where I want to be.
That's a good answer. Okay, I can just edit out all that in between.
Yeah, cut all that crap about the Ceiling Fan and reviews and Wonder Woman.
There's the answer to the question.
No, it is true that like my ambitions are far beyond where I'm at. I wish that I had 1 million subscribers and that I could have that
That's good.
wiggle room of like, okay, I can experiment a little
Right.
bit and I can go to
Well,
the wiggle room and get my wiggles out.
Looking at my wife showed me a new Harry Styles song the other day. She's like, you won't guess who this is, because it didn't sound, I guess, like stuff he's done before. And she's like, it's Harry Styles. And I was like, I wasn't actually that surprised, because I listened to his first album that he put out after he became like his own thing, and it was kind of just all over the place. It was like, this song's like this genre, this song's that genre. Some of the songs are pretty good. Some of them were
like pillow talk, something like that.
This song's about fruit. This song's about pillows. You know, I could write about various objects around the house.
Squishy things. What's squishy around here?
I thought
this
that's
about boobies.
I thought that's so great. You got to do One Direction, and now you have all this fame that you can just play with, and you can just do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Justin Timberlake is super creative because he can be. Like, he can do whatever he wants. And Harry Styles, I'm guessing, he can do whoever he wants until he gets canceled. But he still gets those royalties. Can't take that away.
Can't cancel those.
Yep.
Okay. Well, another thing I wanted to maybe catch up with you on.
Now I'm going to get canceled.
Oh,
I keep on going on podcasts so that I can say something like that and get canceled, and nobody cancels me.
Nobody.
And I have a friend who got canceled recently, and
really?
I feel it's a girl, and you know, it's just like, what are you doing, guys?
You can't cancel girls.
You can't cancel girls. They're girls. They don't know anything.
You're not allowed to hit. You're not allowed to hit girls, man.
Yeah.
But I was gonna ask, like, I mean, you were doing Who Would Build the Roads?
Oh yeah,
for a while,
yeah,
and I loved that podcast. That was
I loved it too.
It made me. I mean, there was I feel like a lot of people probably had a similar response to me, and then you just kind of heard the premise. You're like, oh, well, there's some obvious problems there. Libertarian anarchy. That's not a good political philosophy.
Yeah, go to whatever the place is, Somalia, huh? Why don't you just go there if you want to live that life?
Well, it was so fun though, just to actually dive in and tease out these questions and like, okay, it's not that simple of an answer. There's more here. There's more you can do with this question. And then recently I was listening to you probably are a fan of this guy, Michael Malice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's a very interesting guy to listen to too.
A great internet troll.
But he's like writing books on basically anarchism.
Yeah.
And I was like, that doesn't it seems like such an easy philosophy to just brush up. But this is the reason I decided to do this show, is to try to go and listen to people's ideas that sound crazy and understand why they're not crazy.
And me calling Michael Malice a troll, I say that with a loving.
He calls himself a troll.
Right. One time I responded to somebody who had commented on his comment, and I was like, so you must be new here. And Michael Malice replied and said, careful, because he will block people for telling people that he's trolling.
because
I don't know. He's like, don't
ruin
the
troll. Okay.
That's all he wants, is to be a troll. But he's an extremely intelligent person. He wrote the unauthorized autobiography of Kim Jong-un.
The unauthorized autobiography.
Yeah.
And his show's called You're Welcome. Spelt wrong.
Yes.
I love that.
Wrong.
That's great. See, that's a guy who doesn't take himself seriously, and that's why you're willing to listen to him. It's like,
exactly,
within 2 seconds of like, he's so happy and so he's just joke, and it's like you don't feel threatened by him, and so then you're willing to sit down and say, okay, well, what do you have to say?
Yep, and he's an extremely intelligent person, and sometimes you don't know what he really believes. He just wrote a book about like the far right or something, and because the Kim Jong-un, he actually went to North Korea.
Yeah,
he interviewed Kim Jong-un. The guy has, before he wrote the book and didn't tell anybody, the guy has been places. I know he grew up like overseas. He's got a crazy life story, and the guy will like go deep undercover into things that like you wouldn't expect, and also still come out with like a very fair, balanced, interesting perspective. And I think what he did was dive into the world of like the far right and what people like the Capitol riots and stuff like that. He knows about all those people, but he's not, I mean, right wingers would think he was super left wing, and left wingers will think he's super right wing. So, what are you gonna do?
Well, we were just talking about cancel culture.
Cancel culture.
And listening back through a couple of your talks with Josh about who would build the roads and who would govern whether or not,
which we never answered, and people are like, "Well, you never answered who would build the roads."
Well, the show isn't over, is it? You just gotta jump back in there.
Done.
Is it done? Well, see, that I was wondering.
I always felt like who would build the roads. The question was the most obvious answer.
I thought you did answer it. I thought you'd even talked about it in the first couple episodes.
We'd all just die of starvation because you would have like Walmart, and they're like, "We don't know how to get people to buy our product.
No roads.
There's no roads." It's not like companies like Amazon figure out ways to ship you the thing, your stupid thing that you ordered and wanted tomorrow.
But
companies would figure out how to get you to their stores. Trust me. That's the answer. Actually, we would all starve to death. That's the answer.
It's difficult to tell what Kevin McCreary really believes sometimes, but so the show's been done for a little while. How drastically have your views they continued to develop? Where are you at?
No.
You just stopped. Like this is now I figured it out.
I think the thing about who would build the roads that's interesting. I think we did like 25 episodes.
Yeah. That was a nice round number.
Yeah,
25.
it's odd. It's an odd number.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? It's such a prime. No, it's not. It's not a prime number. I just did the math in my head. That's how fast I am. I feel like so much of what I believe, like core-wise, foundationally, is in those episodes that I really. I mean, we could have kept on going and answering questions, and I think we ended with something about net neutrality, which is very funny because it's done. Like nobody cares about it anymore. Yeah. Everybody's like, if we get rid of net neutrality, then we're gonna have the worst internet ever, and it's untrue. And in fact, a lot of the people who were on the right who were upset, like that we needed the government to regulate net neutrality, are now like, we need the government. Wait, but Mark Zuckerberg is using his power. They're censoring the conservatives. It's interesting to see that flip or see people. It's fascinating. I think that's a lot of like my principles are in that show. Like I feel like I shared a lot of my core principles, which are
well. So can you give me?
I do believe in free speech.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is you're saying. I believe in the freedom of speech, the freedom of a lot of the stuff that's kind of laid out in the Constitution, in the early parts of the Constitution. Just John Locke, sort of the right to liberty in the pursuit of happiness, or the pursuit of trade, or the freedom of trade, or the freedom of exchange, or association, or whatever. Like all of those things are super important to me foundationally. And so it doesn't matter who it is getting canceled. Like it's fine. People are allowed to cancel anybody. They're like, we hate this person. I think it's my Christian upbringing that puts me on the side of like thinking cancel culture is silly, because I grew up with boycott Disney, boycott Procter and Gamble, boycott anybody who mentions the homosexuals. Like, and I always thought that was silly. I'm like, why are we boycotting businesses that we like? Like,
but that's the thing that I'm afraid of. And it's not okay. This isn't an argument for the U.S. government particularly.
Sure,
but it's for like, unless there are structures of authority all the way up to the very top, you run into situations. It seems like to me. That's why I want to understand what you're. Maybe you've thought about this. Maybe you have a solution. But like, it seems like cancel culture is a.
Libertarianism is not a solution. And it's certainly not a road to utopia. It's just to a degree, an acknowledgement of, to what I believe is kind of more of a reality. Like, this is the way people are. Is it better to give those people lots of power, or is it better to keep everybody with only power over themselves?
But okay,
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, maybe we can start there, because that core principle doesn't make sense to me. How do you keep everybody having only power over themselves? Like, because are you limiting it to only one type of power, like violent power, or like governmental power, or what kind of power are you talking about?
Yeah, I would say that it would require a society that sees those individual freedoms as valuable. So I think that any society that doesn't value freedom of speech, so whether it's a completely libertarian society or a completely authoritarian society, any society that doesn't value free speech, for example, won't work. Like, it won't allow freedom of speech. It'll only be certain people who have the right to talk or to say things, things that the majority agree with, or the authoritarian agrees with. If you have a king and you say something like, "I hate the king," and then you're dead. Like, that's not a good, but that's what'll happen. So any society is going to be only as good as the values that exist within the society. I'm not talking about like religious values, but I'm just talking about like respect for others values, So if you respect freedom of speech, you have to like kind of expect that people you don't like and people you don't agree with will use that to do things you don't agree with.
Yeah.
So if I value freedom of speech, some people are going to say Karl Marx was correct. I don't agree with Karl Marx, but I think they have the right to say it. And if somebody's like, you can't say that, for example, in a country that I lived in for a while, Argentina, there was a dictator and they disappeared thousands of people who were Marxist. That's bad. I'll go out on a limb on the risk of being canceled and say it's wrong to disappear people, to murder people, throw them in the ocean, or whatever they did.
What's the difference between that sort of disappearing and the sort of internet disappearing that we're doing now with like kind of mob ruling?
Question. I don't know.
Like,
I think the difference is the accessibility and the violence. So like, if Twitter had a military that it could utilize to kill and disappear people, I would disagree with it. I would say that's bad.
Like, I feel like the internet is is a good place to kind of do some case studies of like what happens when there's not, intermediary levels of government. Like there's people at the very top and they're trying to manage this whole jumble of people.
Yeah.
And then everybody else is just either they have a check. So there's three tiers, I guess. There's Mark Zuckerberg, and then there's checkmark people, and then there's everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. And
yeah. I mean, I don't agree with Twitter, like banning people, but I also support Twitter's right to do so. But I think that unless we have a society that values freedom of speech, things like Twitter will just continue to be elevated. If we had a society that valued freedom of speech and people's rights, you would be able to have reasonable people who say, yeah, I think that what Trump said, or what Trump's a bad example because he was a government official, but we could say like Gina Carano or the director of.
So
like,
you said,
I don't
if
like
we had
said,
a society that valued freedom of speech, that would be great. I would love if we had a society of people that had better values and valued good things. I think it would be better if everybody was a good Christian and they all valued the best things.
But that's different. I think that valuing being a Christian and valuing like individual rights or individual freedoms is different.
I'm making sort of a broad statement that just saying that like it's sort of you're wishing that people were better, not wishing that a society.
Right? But you're not going to fix that through government.
No,
like because government is decided through those same people.
Yep.
So those bad people who are like overtaking Twitter and mob canceling people are the same people voting.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
Here's my solution, and I have a real solution.
To me, I think educating people, and not in a educate yourself, you jackass, but like
educate men.
Sticking by my principles and saying, like, because I know people who used to be libertarian and they're like, I've given up on it because it's impractical, and I can see that, I understand that, but I don't know that giving more power to individuals makes it better. And so that's why I stick by what I believe, which is that I believe that it's important for us to all value freedom of speech. If we do so, or not just freedom of speech, but people's lives, people's liberty, which is the right to do what you want without infringing on other people's rights, which is not to be murdered, not to be hurt, and the right to own property. So you have the right to own the things that you own, and nobody has the right to take those things. And I if you're a Christian, I think those are backed up through the laws of what you're asked not to do. But I think in reverse, it's what you have the right to have. So you have the right not to be stolen from, or you don't have the right to take from people what they own. And so within those values, that's where I stem from. And I understand that the world doesn't hold those values. They think it's okay if the government says it's okay, or it's okay to like take from people, or I believe this thing, and so we should make it law that thing should be what everybody believes. But it doesn't change anybody. It just makes people afraid to say it out loud.
The thing, okay, so if there's not, sorry, I don't know how deep you want to dive into this can of worms. It's such a big can of worms, but I love it.
Gone into this for a very long time, so I'm happy to talk about it.
Well, let's eat some worms then.
Let's eat those worms.
How to eat?
And I know nobody's listening to this anyway, so here we go.
Exactly. But okay, so look, if there's no structures of authority, then you run into the problem of virality, and virality is exciting when you've put out a YouTube video that suddenly, for some reason, everybody's watching. But it's not exciting when you come up with an idea like, maybe maybe I'm going to be broad in general. Maybe some particular race is the problem. Maybe it's their fault that everything is wrong with the world, and that seems like a really palatable idea for a lot of people. And suddenly that idea, it goes around real quick because there's a lot of there's a lot.
You're talking about never mind. I'm not going to make the joke because it's too soon.
I'm thinking about the John Cleese video that you tweeted today.
Yeah,
which is
the extremist.
There's so much bang for your buck in being an extremist. It's great. There's a lot of benefits.
It feels really good.
It feels really good, and you get enemies. And enemies are great because then you can blame everything on them. And especially if that group that you want to blame everything on doesn't have a lot of means of fighting back, it becomes really useful to just blame everything on them. And then we could just, maybe we could just throw them all in like some little spaces and have them do work. And maybe eventually we could just kill them all.
Yeah.
Like the Jews.
I mean, it's such an unreasonable perspective. But you're right. I mean,
it's extremely palatable.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is that if I didn't have somebody who I sort of respected in my life above me, so somebody who had at least ideological influence, somebody who had power over my beliefs and what I should be spending my time doing and listening to and thinking, if I didn't have somebody to look up to and that had influence over me.
And that's Justin Trudeau for you?
No. So I'm not trying to jump quite that far down the argument just yet.
He's the guy who has influenced me.
If I didn't have Justin Trudeau,
he would never say something or do something that would be against a particular race.
I guess I'm just arguing for the principle of
be in blackface on accident.
But like, Yeah, if I have somebody, so I mean, I guess this is just down arguing for like authority structures in like maybe a religious community, and it's
Sure.
like, okay,
I'm all for it.
but so why does that work for you? But it's
Because
basically
they don't
just,
have armies.
it's just about guns
They don't have
specifically.
guns. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's about their ability to infringe. If you don't have the right to leave, so like if your church wouldn't let you leave, that would be bad.
Right.
Or if your church, so like it's one thing.
But
I'm
there-
even for
historically-
neighborhood, like homeowners associations. So like you make a contract and you agree when you buy the house. I also agree to be a part of this homeowners association or this neighborhood watch group. I think that's 100% fine. But if it's and that you have to pay, and if you don't, then I don't even know what happens if you don't pay your homeowners association. I've never tried. I don't want them. I guess they call the police. But that's the very thing, isn't it? Like, it's the violent aspect, I would say, to it, that if Twitter wants to say we don't let these people on our platform, we don't like that this person's here. Great. There are other platforms. I get that they don't have the audience, but that's a completely different issue of like,
well, I mean,
the
when it comes to Twitter and Facebook, I actually would bring the argument over there and say I don't like the way they're running at this point. I'd rather there be more government there. I'd rather there be a branching government that makes its way all the way down. Which is, I mean,
more government involved with Twitter and Facebook and stuff.
No, I mean, I'd rather there be a more government-like system in Twitter. As far as the way that it's run. So in the sense that I would, and there's I mean, not with Twitter, I guess. In Facebook, I like that there's groups. Groups are cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you can have smaller closed systems that have systems of authority within them, and then those systems can be accountable to a higher authority, and that authority can be accountable to a higher. Like I like that system of nested little systems that all have accountability to each other. Yeah, as the thing is, I like that concept. I just feel like if you get too big of a power differential between one system of power and the system below it, that's when you run into trouble. It's not about people having power.
Like, my compromise to all of this, if I'm not being like super combative and talking to some Marxist on the internet, nothing makes me more like anarcho-capitalist than having an argument on the internet with somebody who disagrees with me. But if I were to like be reasonable, I would say that I think that's smaller. Like I think the state's system, whatever it's called, what is it? Federalism. That's the word I'm thinking of.
Okay.
In the United States, where we had, I think nothing has been more clear than looking at having the ability to look at how different states have reacted, for example, to COVID, and then looking at the results of that. You have this kind of like these tests, kind of Greek city-states-esque, so we're trying this and the ability to freely move from one to the other. And so you have people leaving California because they're like, we don't like the way this is being ran. We're going to Florida. Or people leaving Florida and saying, we'd rather not have this like insane anti-lockdown governor, and we're going to go to California. I don't know anybody who's done that, but I'm guessing if you want to, you can. And obviously I personally don't like that the government's interfering with private businesses. My crazy libertarian perspective is that movie theaters shut down before it was mandated. People were wearing masks before it was required. Like there are things that like businesses, if a business is like, we don't, no shoes, no shirt, no mask, no service. Like right. I 100% support the right for any business to do that kind of thing and to promote it, to put it in their commercials, to say, hey, we don't allow people without masks to come into our stores. So if you don't want to get coronavirus, come over to our store. I think that that's important. And if a company wants to say, we don't allow people with masks to come into our stores, so if you want coronavirus, come on over to our stores. Like I think that that's
discount Corona beers.
We got Corona beers and coronavirus. Like, to me personally, in my opinion, I think those sorts of like it's so much cheaper to have those sorts of testing grounds than to have the government trying to run all these studies and tests on a federal level and then make some sort of rule. And I always think of like snow shovels, for example. If in the United States, because it's so big and it's so vast in terms of like it's just kind of the way the weather is in different parts of the country. If there was some law, like a bunch of people in Florida were killing people with snow shovels, and like, fine, we're making snow shovels illegal. It would kind of make sense that they would make snow shovels illegal in Florida.
There needs to be subsystems. There need to be states. There needs to be
right. So like, but that would be really bad for people, and people could die and slip on their driveway if they didn't have snow shovels in Michigan and New York and all these different places. So like having those where it's like, okay, here's somebody who's actually, he has to face, or she or whatever has to actually face their constituents and is actually there on the ground, boots on the ground. I would much prefer that. Or when it comes to security for your neighborhood or whatever, like I prefer more localized government if I'm going to compromise.
Yes, I think I really agree. I agree that there needs to be, I think if you're going to be making decisions about people that aren't yourself, you need to care about them.
Mm-hmm. And you have to be one of them.
Right.
Potentially.
And so it's like, I could see, okay, this is a pretty abstract, maybe it's a silly idea, but, oh boy.
Here we go.
I discovered this thing called the Fibonacci Sequence, and my super silly, artistic-y, abstract mind thought, hey, that's how everything should work. Because what it is this pattern that appears in nature all the time. It's it's a number sequence, and it goes 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, something like that. The idea is basically every level that goes up, it adds the previous two numbers together.
Oh.
And it shows up in nature in things like pine cones and various different sort of fractal structures.
Mm-hmm.
And my intuition is, and all it is at this point is intuition. I don't really know how I could test this or study this, but it seems that like nature's figured out this way of interdependent stacking systems of dependence. I think I just said dependent twice. Okay, but fractal systems of dependence, where in order to have structural integrity in something, a tree, a pine cone, whatever, you need to have
honeycomb.
I don't know if it's true of honeycombs. Maybe it is.
Okay. Honeycombs are like built out of whatever 8. Is it 8 or 6? Anyway, the way they're built are like the perfect structural.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is a case of the same sort of thing where it's like this pattern has appeared in a whole bunch of different scenarios in nature that are sort of seemingly unrelated, but it seems to be the most effective way of stacking systems that want to expand in numbers of things. So I mean, with a tree, it's like the tree it's not a very good strategy for the tree if it wants to get the most sun rays possible to just be one stick that continues to stack up and go in the same direction. It doesn't ever spread out. But also, it doesn't have as much access to as much potential sunlight if it just stays on the ground. It just spreads out. So there's this back and forth of like multiplicity and unification. I haven't tried to explain this idea that makes
pseudo intellectual bullcrap.
This is pseudo intellectual bullcrap, and that's what I'm saying. It's just an intuitive thought, but it's just like it really. I don't know. Maybe there's something there. It makes sense to me that you have to have, if you want to have systems that spread out but are also rooted in something stable, you have to make sure that you don't spread out too fast. You don't just go from 1 to 900.
Oh, like my YouTube channel. I get it now.
But it's okay. I mean, like the tree branching thing. It's like it goes. You have one stump, and then it spreads out into 2 or 3, and then it's 5, and then it's 13, and then it's right. That image is kind of what comes to mind when I think about a stable or a functional government structure. It's like you need to have systems of authority in place. You need to have people gathering under
guess.
somebody in charge of them. It ends up being useful to do that, I guess. It's just like,
sure, but that I think should be voluntary. That's all I say. I think that
at a certain point, though, you lose.
I think people need to have the ability to fail, the right to fail, the freedom to fail, and like, for example, I always say, like, I'm a very like liberal person who lives a very conservative lifestyle because I think that I highly recommend it. I'm married, as I've said a million times. I have 4 animals. They're great animals. They're wonderful animals. They're wonderful. But I don't think everybody should live that way. But the reason I recommend it is because I find that it's very conducive to a positive lifestyle. Carmen and I we both work financially. It's beneficial. I have a helpmate, you might say, in my wife, and I don't have kids, but I imagine it would be fun, and but maybe I won't ever have kids, but like, everybody's different. And I think that the danger you have with kind of higher realms of authority and spread out into aspects of your life is people deciding those sorts of things, not necessarily how many kids you have, but also how many kids you have. I mean, that's happened with governments. What you choose to do. I think that there are incentives to not do certain things. You look at like insurance encourages you not to smoke because it's just not cost effective for them to. It's not as cost effective for them to insure somebody with who smokes. Now, I'm not saying that insurance is the best thing for society. I don't know what is. And I think nobody does, but I think people know better about. People should have the freedom to find those things that work for them. And the more we can do that, the more I think we'll discover things that are better for each person.
I just think it would also be nice people to have the benefit of having somebody to rely on to help make group decisions.
Yeah, that's called dad.
Exactly. It is called dad. But then the person above dad is like, I just think you should only be in charge of the number of people that you can care about. And then maybe you need to have a branching structure of authority above that. But then they should only be in charge.
But why should they be in charge of anybody?
Because maybe they're competent at being in charge. Like, that is a skill set.
Like, for example, I think that I have, but those are people that you pay to be in charge of those certain aspects of your life, like my internet or my.
Well, okay, so then you run into
Netflix
this problem of like. So I know plenty of people who, when they've wanted to like find therapy or counseling.
Okay.
And at this point, we have so much access to just who you can find whoever you want. You got the internet, so you can find whoever you want to tell you what you want to hear. But the thing is that you don't necessarily know what's best for you. You don't know what you want.
So do you think you don't know?
Yeah.
Garrett.
I think I don't know what I want. I think I struggle to figure out
who's going to be able to fix that for you.
Well, I mean, within the Christian tradition, I feel like we have those structures of, okay, I have somebody tell me what I don't really know what I want to do in life. I think I know what I want to do, but then I have a pastor who tells me what I really want to do. In some senses, right? It's like I have somebody to tell me, okay, this is actually better. And he spends his life, like he spends his whole life studying I mean, ideally, he spends his whole life studying how to be better at giving that advice.
Yeah, hopefully he's not spending his life raping children. That's the hope with a pastor.
That's the hope.
But you don't know.
I mean, you do that.
You that's the thing though.
So I want to have a close enough connection to my pastor that I could know if he's a rapist.
Well, hopefully you do know, and right. Then you make the decision as an individual to put yourself underneath a pastor, not physically, that will not put you under him.
But hey,
physically.
If I made the decision, that would be consensual.
Yeah, as an adult, sure. If that's what you want to do, and that is true. Like if you made the decision as a consenting adult,
that is true.
I think it's manipulative. And this is why I review Christian movies, not to stop molestation, but because, if I look at a movie and I'm like, this is stupid. Like, everybody's saying that this is good, but really it's promoting something that is like counter to Christianity from my perspective, then I think that's important. Not saying that my reviews are important. They're just dumb YouTube videos, but I'm still going to say it. I'm going to say, look, this God's Not Dead movie is promoting anger and is inflaming the culture war, in my opinion.
I just have this intuition. Maybe it's not true. I feel it's based on my experience. I feel like negative or mocking or bad stuff is more viral than good stuff, and I think you see that with sugar. I think you see that with porn, and I think you see that with cancel culture. I think it's just it's fun to make fun of people. And racism, all these things. It's like they're viral. They spread quickly because they're expedient. They're fun. You get a lot of benefit
like you have some power,
right? And it's like
you're a part of something.
So I really am a big fan of, okay, at least on an individual level, setting boundaries, but then above that, sometimes I want to have somebody above me help. I want to offload some of the responsibility for that. And maybe they want to, I don't know. You see where I'm going with this.
But I think that that's fantastic to want that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think everybody does.
Yeah, and I think it's crap that not everybody does, and they should want that.
Is that good? Like, will you make them want that authoritatively?
I don't see a better solution to the problem of viral things spreading quickly. I mean, COVID is another prime example of, okay.
I think once everybody's been canceled.
But everybody, we're never going to get there.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be more people.
But that's because people don't care. Like, people don't value that.
People don't value what?
Freedom of thought.
Yeah. Okay. People
but
don't value.
Get there by limiting people's thoughts.
I kind of value having not dying of cancer, but I still eat a lot of unhealthy foods, and I kind of would like somebody to tell me not to do that, or I kind of would like to not. I don't know.
That's fine if you believe that. I don't. I totally disagree. I think you have the right. You should have the right to kill yourself with cancer if that's really what you are inclined to do.
I just feel like everybody has the inclination to do a lot of negative things to themselves, and
they do.
Having people, especially people that care about them, that they've offloaded some of the responsibility of taking care of them.
Yes, but you're not going to elect somebody who cares about you.
Ideally, I would like.
What is good is to have support systems in your life to be around people who do care about you. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
But not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody likes having people around them who care about them. And so they'll abandon that. Does it help to support that mentality? To protect people from abandoning their support systems?
Does it help to prevent people from abandoning their support?
No, does it help to protect people, to save people to create a social safety net from people who have abandoned their support systems, like their family or their church or
to some, I think to some extent,
local things.
Because if you start,
because to me, I think it incentivizes it. Like if you incentivize people to abandon their personal support systems by giving them national or federal or governmental support systems, it has the potential of.
Well, the thing is, I don't want them to replace them. I just want there to be a stacking. I want there to be that fractal thing.
Yeah, but everything's different. Everybody thinks differently.
Right. So I
you're
think
asking for people to all
if you
think
get
the same.
No, I'm not. That's the thing. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there are.
I want is for when people think differently than me, for them to only have as much power as I have. I just want equality.
You just don't. But as soon as you have a free market, you get virality, and virality leads to radical inequality.
But it also provides niche markets. So So like if the government doesn't fund a particular crazy niche thing in a free market, you can still buy that thing. And sometimes that means stupid people buy stupid things. But it also means that you, who believes maybe in Jesus, for example, and maybe that's not the most popular thing, it doesn't depend on government funding in order to stay alive. But you can have your little area of Adventures in Odyssey fan podcasts or something, And so, like, I feel like a lot of extremists will bring up, like, and to me, I feel like a lot of people will bring up, like, can you believe these SJWs are saying this? But they're like a niche group. Or can you believe these Christians are boycotting this? And to me, I'm like, it's stupid, and people should have the right to call it stupid, and also they should have the right to do it.
Yeah.
And hope and pray that eventually people will stop being so stupid. But they may not be. But how in the world are you going to get, just from what I've seen, typically once you have that like ultimate authority, it's the stupid people who put that person in power. And now you've not only created like this ultimate authority, but you've created it, and now it's in the people who were like being dumb have now put Trump in charge. Or Biden or whoever you think is stupid, that's the person they put in charge. I see what you're saying, but I just think that unfortunately it has to be voluntary. Like if somebody wants to leave the church and say, you know what, I'm done with you people, they get everything that goes with it, which is abandoning that belief and finding out what the world is like.
I look at the family as a functional microcosm of the way things seem to work. It's like it's not that voluntary when there's like varying degrees of how voluntary it is to still be part of a family.
Sure, but you can abandon your family, but you won't get to eat.
Right, exactly. And it's like you can abandon your country, but now you live in the sea and you drowned.
Right, but your family isn't saying... No, I get what you're saying. I see what you're saying. All right, fine.
All right, fine.
I'm a communist now. But it's true that like the idea of communism does work locally.
Yeah. And I'm not like a authoritarian capitalist or something like that. I think that I think there needs, and I'm not a moderate either. I think that we need all of the extremists and all the centrists. We just need them all to work together.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, to a degree, I'm an extremist because if I take the political compass test, I end up on the far right bottom.
Yep. On the butt of the far right.
The rear end, the butthole of the far right. But I don't agree with most far right people. I think I'm somewhere in the middle, especially when I'm being reasonable and not in an argument.
Yeah.
But that I think these days lands me on the far right, where I'm like, maybe we shouldn't like blow out the national debt. You racist Nazi, you, Kevin. Yep. But I didn't like Trump for doing that. I don't like bombing the Middle East. These I don't like net neutrality. So
I don't even remember what that is.
See? Because it's that viral aspect where it's just like, this is something we really care about this week.
Right.
But I don't think that's going to go away. I don't think like the 24-hour news cycle is going to go away without. I don't think we're going to legislate it away.
Yeah. I think it would be a form of legislation. It's just I'm looking at this as more of an abstract concept, not of like the U.S. government legislating it, but like unless they legislate that you can't be an internet company without having hierarchical systems of authority that branch all the way down. Because I think when it comes to Facebook and Twitter, I hope that we see through the bad things about this dynamic soon, because those spaces I mean, it seems like a lot of people are coming to the conclusion that like I can't handle being on Facebook. I can't handle being on Twitter. I need to go take a fast from it. I need to just quit it.
I that video I shared is because I was on Twitter and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just like everybody's so extreme. And I had to remind myself, you know what, though, these people are just feeling good. They're getting the dopamine from being outraged about something. And the reason I even brought up like the old school Christians is because that's what they used to have. They had Dr. Dobson and these like people who would get angry about the gays and stuff. So what's funny is I support the idea of boycotting, but I never agree with the people who do it.
maybe that should tell you something about boycotting, Kevin.
But that's the thing. Like, what's the alternative? Like,
Censorship.
Government like approved. Like, okay, who are they going to approve? They're going to approve Facebook. Like, only Facebook is allowed around anymore. I don't see how that makes it better.
I
look at the COVID lockdowns, and the only places who are getting in trouble for not locking down are small businesses. Yet Walmart has stayed open the whole time. McDonald's has stayed open the whole time. Like these major corporations get to stay open. When it,
very
this is an argument that people have with. This is an argument people have with, because this is kind of part of the zeitgeist right now, is the minimum wage. Is that well, we need to raise the minimum wage, but yet all these major corporations are in support of raising it, and I know small business owners who pay people a little less than what they want, a little less than $15 an hour here in the United States. Those are the people who are gonna McDonald's supports it. Walmart supports raising the minimum wage because they're not gonna start paying people more.
They're just gonna buy more computers to replace people,
right? And a lot of their competition goes away because of that. And I understand that that's like kind of a controversial. That may not necessarily be true. I haven't done all the math on that, but it is telling when major corporations are the ones in favor of a lot of these like government legislation. And a lot of legislation, I'm not talking about what you're saying in terms of the concept of, parents are in charge.
Layers of authority, I guess. That's a way of saying
I get what you're saying. I mean, that's like the common sense pamphlet books that I think we talked about a little bit on Who Would Build the Roads. Thomas Paine's pamphlets kind of goes through that, like layers of authority. But in practice, what we see, and this is what like Bernie Sanders supporters often argue about, is these corporations in bed with the government, crony capitalism. We have like the lobbyists for these huge companies writing the legislation and handing it off to the and this is in the United States, I know, and you're in Canada where it's utopia.
Yeah, but it's utopia here. Everybody drinks it. Everybody has Fruitopia for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Praises communist dictators. He loves them. But like you guys are just sipping down your syrup, your maple syrup, and playing hockey. It's great there.
Yep.
But these legislators not even reading it and then passing these bills that benefit these huge corporations, and more legislation written by those same people isn't going to fix anything. And so maybe that's me. Maybe that's why I tend to lean that way, where I'm like, let's get rid of the power that these people have, and let's look at
my solution would be more. Let's divide up the power a little bit more, because right now the differential between the people at the top and the people at the middle is way too far, and they're making decisions that clearly are not based on on any understanding of the boots on the ground version of the problem.
And that would be my compromise with any like Bernie Sanders far leftist, would be where you land, you moderate. Would be, okay, I get it that we can't have full anarcho-capitalism. The argument is, well, Apple's just going to have a military then, and they'll become government. Obviously my argument is I would be just as anti-Apple doing that as I am currently the U.S. government doing that. It's just on the flip side, everybody's cool with the U.S. government doing it and would freak out if Apple did it. So let's have a little consistency here, is my crazy anarcho-capitalist perspective. But my compromise is, yes, let's have that authority more localized. Let's have maybe, let's not shame governors for making decisions that go against the whatever the federal government is saying. Let's allow for states to make those decisions and allow a lot of freedom for people to leave those states when they make bad decisions. Because the problem is, in the United States, that's kind of like, that ends up being going back to the Civil War, where they're like, well, look, there was a lot of states' rights activists who were racist, and even in later than that, and that's sad. It's too bad. But there was also federal laws that were racist that enforced that. If we can allow that freedom of people to move and get away from the bad people, I think that's better for everyone.
I think I agree.
Right, because that's the thing you want. I'm compromising here.
I'm willing to agree with you, Kevin, as long as you agree with me.
Well, and that's the thing, like, finding that, I think it is important for us to all find those, like you were saying, about all those extremists learning to work together.
Yeah. Well, to me,
in
my weird
myself,
abstracty mind,
I would say, like, let's move towards this middle ground of, we don't want a dictator, a king, saying nobody's allowed to say that men and women are men and women from the top.
Right.
Let's allow.
I'd rather somebody near the bottom say that, and they can try that out in their own little branch of this big tree of government, and then we can actually try out diverse ideas. We can actually have diversity if we have a fractal structure of authority and of systems, because then,
and sure, you might end up with little pockets of terrible people.
We already have. Right now we have huge pockets of terrible people.
Exactly.
And they're all the same kind of terrible. I'd rather at least have some diversity of terribleness.
And you have that pressure of people to pick a side, at least in the United States, where it's like, here's terrible people, and then here's kind of like middle of the road people who are kind of like, fiscally conservative, and they're like, I guess I'm gonna vote for Trump because I'm not
how the common enemy of both extremists is the moderate.
The
moderate clip.
It's true. Like, and so you get these middle of the road people who are like, I'm not a racist. I don't want to close off. I don't want no immigration. I don't want, like, these people who are, but now I have to choose between a socialist and an insane person. I don't know what to do, like, but I think what you're saying, having those pockets of like, let's try this.
Yeah.
For one, those people end up getting like feedback where it's like, Mr. Governor, we don't like how racist you're being. And that actually matters.
Right.
Because it's like, well, we only have like 2,000 people voting for me.
And if 1,000 of them say this is a dumb idea, then it matters. But usually in the scope of the United States, if 1,000 people care about something that they're experiencing and they have a legitimate, they have reason to have a legitimate opinion because they're actually experiencing the problem. When
they're
they
actually being disenfranchised.
Right.
Right.
But they have no influence on that level.
Absolutely.
And that sucks.
I agree. And I bet if I talk to you longer, I could get you to be a full-blown anarcho-capitalist like me. Because to me, the greatest form of what is it called? A democracy is capitalism. Just kind of this ability to, you don't have to pay your taxes to anybody. You don't have to purchase anything unless you agree to it. But I won't go that far because I understand that that's an extreme view. That's a crazy Michael Malice perspective.
I'm so happy that you have that view, though, because I don't want to. I'm not. It's not even a matter of I'm so against that view. It's that I'm not as interested in that view, and I like that we can be interested in different views and investigate different ideas and think about different stuff, because then we can have interesting conversations, and then you dug deep enough in those minds of libertarian philosophy to pull something out that's really valuable that I would not have gotten to.
Yeah. And I think part of that is just recognizing everybody as an individual and We all have different life experiences, which is something that I feel like people on the left like to say. That we all have different lived experiences.
Yeah.
But actually realizing why do people aren't evil because they think a thing that's different than you think. Maybe they actually
they're
have some
evil for some
reason.
other reason.
They're all evil. Everybody's a terrible person, and that's why it's important not to give them power, but or minimize their power.
Okay. Well, I think we
Absolute
solved it. We
power
just get rid of
corrupts
all.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So we'll get rid of all the absolute power and get rid of all the power in general, and then
And we'll force everybody to be a Christian.
there we go.
That'll fix everything. Because Jesus was like, look, if you come to me, it better be by force. The only one who's forcing someone to become a Christian is the Holy Spirit, because I'm a Calvinist.
Yeah, I was going to go to your little... If you don't want absolute authority, then got news.
Look, here's the thing. This is why people are confused about my politics and my religious perspectives. I think God is 100% completely in control of everything, but he did not give us that perspective.
Yep.
And I think there's a reason for that. We're supposed to live as if though we have free will, and none of this will matter in heaven. None of these political opinions matter in heaven, because God's going to be in charge, and somehow he'll reconcile and make it all work. And I don't know how that happens.
Isn't he already in charge?
Yeah. But he didn't give us the perspective or the understanding or the brain capacity to understand how we can have the perspective of free will and also him be completely in control. But I think it's important to recognize that he is, because he is God. But
I think it is important to recognize that he is too.
Yeah.
That's good.
But we should also, it's like playing a board game, and that you're playing a board game. And if somebody's there playing the game and is like, this is just a game, none of this matters in real life. Sure. Yes, I get it. But we've all agreed to play by the rules. So play by the rules. Stop ruining it for everyone.
Well, I think the same argument is like, why does it matter if I murder anybody? Because we're all just atoms and molecules anyways. There's like, we're not really like, life doesn't mean anything. We're all, in the end, the universe is going to end. It doesn't matter. Like, right. No, we're doing this right now. Stop being a jerk.
Yeah, this is the game we're playing right now.
Yeah.
Stop being a jerk. You don't want to be murdered. And if you do,
Stop jerking those soda fountains. You jerk.
Stop being jerking, you freaking soda jerk. This has been a great conversation.
Yes, this has been a great conversation.
Let's do this every week. Let's just start a podcast. I want to start I've already started like 5 podcasts with all my friends.
Yeah. But
what's another one?
Sure.
One
let's
for
do
every
it.
day of the week.
For every day of the week. Perfect. Okay.
When you're crazy. Justin. See, I'm not drunk. I have braces, and I struggle saying things. That's the only problem here.
I wish I had that excuse.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Well,
You're
okay.
Justin Trudeau worshiping Canadianism. It is interesting to talk to Canadians, not you.
Not me. I'm not interested.
Because there is a different perspective there. And Americans are like, we do have built into us this like gun-toting First Amendment, Second Amendment perspective, that talking to a Canadian who's like, yeah, but like, what if shouldn't we help people? Like, shouldn't we say we're sorry when we bump into someone?
Yep.
We do have a cowboy-esque perspective in America, and I hope it doesn't go away.
I hope it doesn't go away either. It's honestly, again, I feel like being a Canadian and identifying with Canada, looking over at America, I'm like, it's like this, really almost arrogant, super cool, super like assertive big brother figure. And it's like, that's my big brother, and I'm glad I'm not him, but I'm glad he's around.
He's there.
He's there.
Keeping everybody on their toes. He's bombing the Middle East for us. Look, that wasn't me. All right. I may have paid my taxes for it to happen, but I didn't do it.
You're complicit, man. See, that's why I'm happy to be a Canadian. I'm proud to be a Canadian because we don't have any military.
Yeah.
We don't have guns.
You're just letting old people die in the waiting room. That's all.
Good stuff. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I'm
How
gonna.
does it you still have some shootings over there without guns? I don't get it. How did it happen?
I mean, yeah, there was a pretty crazy. Okay, well, let's talk about that in a second. I'm gonna say that this
That'll
is.
be next week. Next week on some maple-loving Canadian and some crazy gun-toting American.
That's a catchy name.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope everybody listens to this and they hate me for it.
Yep, me too. I already hate you, so.
Yeah, good.
Well, that was interesting. If you enjoyed this conversation, feel free to subscribe, like the video. Any kind of engagement really helps out with algorithm stuff as far as I'm aware. Another thing I'd love if you would do would be to share this video with someone who you think might find it interesting or specifically might disagree with it about something or disagree with you about something, and use it as a launch pad to have an interesting conversation, have an interesting disagreement maybe, because that's really what this whole thing is about for me. I think that having, honest disagreements is a really useful and meaningful thing to do. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.